Gatekeeping comes from the insecurity of
somebody's going to do it better than you.
Somebody might be able to do it better than you. And that's why people don't want to share their wheel specs, is because they're worried somebody could get the same specs and make their car look better than yours.
Yo, we just, holy shit, we just fucking like ran right into that.
All right, episode's done.
Yes, put a fork in it.
Yo, what's going on, everybody? Happy New Year. It is the 2nd of January today, and we're excited to be back recording again. Matt hasn't been here for a couple of weeks.
I'm even more excited than Liam is.
Today's episode, we want to touch on something that has been brought up many times. We've even mentioned it in previous episodes, and a bunch of you guys have made the suggestion that we do an episode on it. We were kind of waiting because we don't want to release all of the big juicy topics at one time, because then you guys will just listen to those and probably get bored of this podcast. But thankfully, talking of that, this I believe is our 8th episode.
Is it actually?
Yeah, which means we've been doing this consistently for 8 weeks, so 2 months. That's quite, honestly, that's kind of weird thinking about it, because it honestly feels like it was 3 weeks ago that we started doing this.
Yeah. Well, I mean, granted,
we've talked about this for a very, very long time.
It feels a little different for me just because I need to get closer. It feels a little different just for me because I haven't been in 2 of them.
Right.
So for me, it does feel like a little bit less time, but regardless, I mean, obviously it's been in existence for that long, so that's pretty cool. Yeah,
it's just kind of flowing with it, and again, super thankful that you guys are still, here listening to episodes. It's really, really cool to see that this has just taken on its own path.
And still talking about it. Still talking about it.
I mean, now. When we started this, I knew that it was going to have some translation of people come over from my audience from other things. But actually, yes, when it first started, it had that. But after the first few episodes and some of the bigger topic episodes, there's been a whole new audience that have no idea who I am, have no idea who you are, and you people just like what we're talking about. And I love that. I love that this has its own audience, its own demographic. There's nothing that is oh yeah, I know Liam, I like what he does, let me go listen to this. It's I just heard of the podcast from somebody else, and it's really cool.
Yeah, I think
that's so fucking cool.
That's
so thank
the part
you guys.
That's crazy to me is when he started to kind of tell me, intermittently that he was hearing or talking to people that just heard about it organically, and that's so cool.
I mean,
dude.
Yeah, we really can't ask
so
for
cool.
more from this, because we didn't set out with a specific thing in mind. We want to have this many people listening. We don't really care. It's more so about the quality of audience, and if you guys are enjoying this and we're stimulating to think differently, or certain people to just I don't even know how to describe it. Just think differently and apply maybe some of the things that we're talking about to your lives and the community. And I think over time it can have an effect on how things are. Honestly.
I mean, it's like we've said at the beginning, and it's we'll continue. So these conversations were going to happen either way. And so the idea that people are listening to them with interest is just, it's really cool. It's really cool. And it's it's not even a kind of thing where we're taking that as people care. No, it's like we said in the beginning, this is just to open up a dialogue about this kind of stuff. And it's just really cool with each newer, listener, I guess.
I think that these conversations do happen, outside of us. There's plenty of people that talk about this stuff, but also some of these topics that we touch on are conversations that a lot of people aren't really able to have, because people get upset, they get emotional,
get really militant about it.
It turns into a fucking pissing match about some of these topics, because people are either on their high horse, they're stubborn, they have big egos, whatever, and both me and you are kind of just approaching this from we take all of the perspectives from different people and things that we hear and come across and see, apply our own opinions here or there, but at no point are we acting this is what it is, you have to listen to what we're saying.
That's a perfect segue for me to hit him with that disclaimer. So especially with this episode, an episode about gatekeeping.
We're not gatekeeping.
I would like to remind you that we do this podcast, so you're going to be hearing our opinions, Our opinions are just that, opinions. Our opinions are not any more valuable than your opinions. They're just opinions. The two of us, generally speaking, don't really talk at length about things that we don't know about, and you'll hear us say that.
Yeah. If we do, we're pretty quick to clarify, like, well, I don't really know a lot on that, so I'm not going to talk on it.
Right. So even if whether you listen to us regularly, whether you just kind of, whatever, if you hear us and you perceive something that we're doing as gatekeeping, like, I mean, that's kind of a you problem, but as far as like our motivation is not that.
No, so it's never to restrict things.
You can clip this. Our opinions are not any more valuable than your opinion. They're just opinions.
In saying that, though, for this episode, I did, instead of doing like a Q&A thing at the end, I did put out a thing on my story just saying, hey, let's talk about gatekeeping, and had some people send me some suggestions of certain topics and things that are related to gatekeeping. And so I've taken quite a few different perspectives from people and things to talk about. They're not necessarily people's opinions. It was more so just naming things that gatekeeping is a part of related to cars. So yeah, we'll get into those throughout the episode, and we've listed off a few other things that we've thought of too. And yeah, we'll just see how the conversation goes. Like each topic that we jump onto, we'll go into depth and talk about some of our experiences with it, or some of the things that we've seen. And that'll be that. But before we jump into that, I do want to say, you'll notice if you're watching on YouTube, I am wearing a Substance shirt. These are actually available on the site right now. We've been having supply issues for like the past month or so, and so it took fucking forever for me to get these in. I actually switched over to a new supplier, but they're here now. They're in very limited numbers. I won't lie, I think some of the sizes are going to sell out the moment that this podcast goes live, so I do apologize if you do miss out. I am going to restock them at some point.
Appreciate y'all for that.
Yeah. But yeah, I have these in this cool like olive green color, and then there is a gray with the white print on it. Go grab those. They're on lepautomotive.com/shop. It goes a long way to supporting this podcast. Like I said when we first started this, I fronted the money for all of this equipment stuff just because this is a passion project, and if we can recoup some of that money, that would be great, and then we can kind of reinvest some of that into improving the experience with this. It'd be really nice if we can get to a point where we have like a better studio space, we have better lighting, and I mean, it'd be even better if instead of relying on guests to find their own way here, if the podcast made its own money where we could pay for guests to travel to us, that would be wonderful. But
that would be so cool.
That's quite a ways off. Yeah, everything is very expensive. But if you guys like what you're listening to, even if you don't want to spend any money to support us, please just go give us a 5-star rating on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, or like the video on YouTube, and share it with your friends, because it goes a long way in helping this grow, and hopefully gets out to more people, and we can over time make a difference. So anyways, before we jump into like the topic, it's a new year.
It is.
I feel like this is a good time to kind of just maybe talk about a few things from previous year and new things going into the new year. So Matt, you got any? Because me and you had quite a moment last night. Actually, right here, we had quite a moment.
We had one of those conversations that you have with your. With one or multiple people that are really important to you, where you just kind of are like overwhelmed, by just gratitude for who you have, where you're at in your life. And, both of us, I think, Liam and I had, I almost want to say it's like a different type of year last year, but they both really ended up awesome.
It kind of, yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
it's not like, so, if I look back on the year and negatively think about it, I'd be like, man, I didn't really like get where I want to be. I'm not, it's just another year that's gone by that I'm not successful. I'm not in the position that I want to be. I'm still not financially stable, blah, blah, blah. But if I do look at the year overall, which I did do that the other day when I was going through like all of my story archives and a bunch of pictures and stuff, I was just like, so unbelievably happy for the people that I've met, the experiences that I've had over the past year, and me you and Ben living together has just been like, I have wanted this for such a long time.
I don't know about y'all, but Liam got my ass with that fucking video, bro.
What,
you got a couple tears out of me, bro.
Yeah, I posted, I made like a little montage that was all just from story archives, and just like threw it up on social media. So if you want to go look at that, it's on my Instagram at LEP_automotive. It was just kind of a collection of really like good stories that I found in my archive. Granted, it's not everything, but the caption that's on there was really important to me. And if you're curious about anything to do with me, feel free to go read it. If not, it's not really a big deal. But yeah, I'm really thankful to just be in this position. I feel like this past year has just been like trying to set myself up to be in the right place for 2022, where I'm like, okay, I can achieve my goals now because everything else is like lined up where it needs to be.
Yeah. And it's like I said, our years definitely, what am I trying to say? I feel like they kind of traveled at like a different speed between the two of us to the nth degree. But like I said, by the end of the year, I think we're both in a really, really, really good spot. And to be honest with you, like, it's like we were talking about, yesterday. No matter what happens during this upcoming year, we're going to hit it with a positive mental attitude. And although I just said positive mental attitude, PMA is a lot easier to say, but I didn't know if everybody would catch that. The point is, that's kind of something that that I've arrived at, that I'm taking into this new year and for the rest of my life, really, is it's like, obviously, I don't have to tell anybody listening to this, nothing is guaranteed, man. Absolutely zero is guaranteed. And, shit gets really hard. I mean, that's just how life goes. You just kind of get in cycles where it gets really hard, then it picks up and it gets hard, and it's like, but at the end of the day, the best you can do for yourself is put all of your available energy into just like
bettering yourself,
having a positive attitude. And I'll be honest, I'm going to open up more about this as time goes on with this podcast, because I'm really passionate about mental health, because I struggle with it as somebody with bipolar disorder. And I want to give validation to people that were like myself, where, especially when you have a chemical imbalance or a mental disorder, it can feel literally impossible to have a good attitude. It can feel really impossible to just be grateful for what you have. And it's like, even still, for me as a person, if you're putting your energy into it, whether you're succeeding or failing, you're still doing the right thing.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And so, like I said, man, I think me and Liam both, and Ben, Ben too, frankly, he's obviously not here to say it himself, but I think all three of us are just like, we have some seriously good fucking momentum right now. And I'm just so grateful for that. Honestly, the momentum that we have, the energy that we're going into this new year. And
dude, the thing that stoked, I like broke down about this shit last night. Like I was sitting where Matt's sitting right now, like crying my eyes out about this shit, just talking about like people refer to like, things in their teenage years or like a period of their life being the best years of their life. And I was like, well, I want to say that these are going to be the best years of our life, but they're not. Like your life changes and you have, different priorities and different things that make you happy. And so I think that these next few years that we're like really, really close together and we're doing things are going to be like the best years of this part of our life. But, 10 years from now, we're all going to be, we're going to have separate lives. We're going to have families and doing whatever else we're doing. We're still going to be good friends and we're still going to be close, but like it's a different, you have different priorities then. You have different things that make you happy. And so for right now, like I'm just in a super appreciative mood. Like I have wanted, like for years I have been so like on my own with like nobody close to me. I've had no close friends. I've had nobody that I can like really like be vulnerable with. Like I haven't even felt like I could do that with family, and that's nothing negative against my family. It's just my own choices. But like now to be in a position where I'm surrounded by people that I just genuinely love, like you guys are my fucking people. And like everything that I have been working towards for like the past 10 years is finally starting to kind of align, and I'm really like just getting the things. It's like I've had all these like these things in my brain, but they haven't been able to like make the right connections, and finally like those little connections are being made, and it's like, all right.
That's the best fucking feeling, dude.
Even if I don't like get where I want to be this year, it doesn't matter. I'm like still just going in the right direction. And that's all that I need.
That's like kind of, I think I was like aiming to say this when I was talking just a minute ago, but I like meandered somewhere else, as I do.
Yeah.
But like, where I'm at mentally right now and where I'm going to stay, because ever since I started thinking like this, it's just, I'm very much want to have an episode about mental health at some point, because as I said, that's literally something I'm probably arguably the most passionate about.
Right. And I mean, it's a big and important topic within the car community too, because it's such a hugely like, I don't want to say like male driven, maybe the wrong way to describe it, but it's a very like masculine driven community where it's like, oh, you gotta be a big tough guy, blah blah blah, and like we don't need to do that, but also there's like the polar opposite end of it where people are just way too over the top about mental health stuff, where it turns into a trend and people are trying to sell stuff. I don't want to get onto it too much in this episode, but like it's definitely an episode we want to do. I think that's going to be a really important
thing to talk about. But so I keep like getting off track, but the point is, at this point in my life, I'm very securely planted in the idea that because nothing is guaranteed, the only thing that I can do, and I'm so grateful now that I'm stable on medication, that I can do, is just be grateful. Look, nobody's going to fucking make fun of you for being grateful for shit. And
I mean, somebody might if you're like 16. But
well,
when you're an adult, people don't.
Fucking stupid. But
when you're an adult, people don't tend to make fun of you for. I mean, if they do, then they got their own issues. But
it's just like, if you're grateful, it doesn't matter what happens. It doesn't. I mean, it does not matter what happens. If you can find something to be grateful about, whenever anything, whatever it may be in your head, comes to an end,
you can.
If you are grateful the entire time. Mm-hmm. Not a single part of that was a waste.
If you live your entire life being grateful, you can't really be sad when you die.
Yeah, exactly.
Because you enjoyed your life and you appreciate it.
Were grateful the entire time, and that's just where I'm at, and I'm so fucking grateful that I have arrived at this place, But yeah, I think all that to say, I can only, everybody listening to this. Anybody not listening to this, but, their friend tells them about the episode or something, I want everybody to feel like we're feeling. I want everybody to have, this sense of, I mean, it sounds kind of lofty, but just hope, man. Like, nowadays, we have to take that shit where we can get it.
Yeah.
So I just want that for all of y'all. I want that for him. I want that for all my people. I want that for everybody.
All right. I think this is like the longest we've done. We've done like a catch up conversation.
But
it's necessary. I think for it being the start of the year, it's necessary to have that thought, because I think a lot of you guys are going to be listening to this probably on the 3rd or 4th of January, and for a lot of people there's just a lot of uncertainty at the start of the year, and some people may be disappointed with how their year went last year, and there's just the start of the year always feels like there's a lot of pressure on you to improve your life or do whatever, and like. There doesn't need to be. I feel like we just need to remind you guys that, just simple things. Just find
live the best
one or two things a day that make you happy. Mm-hmm. And if you do that every day, then you'll consistently live a happier life. But moving on from that and getting into the
time to talk shit.
The source of the episode. Before we jump into some of the actual topics, it is definitely necessary to define what gatekeeping is. So Google searched gatekeeping definition, and it says the activity of controlling and usually limiting general access to something, which we can kind of dive into that a little bit and give an example so that it makes sense to you guys and how it applies in the car community. I think one of the biggest things that we can mention right off the bat is wheel specs, because that's just like, I think most people who are involved with car community.
What a hilarious phenomenon, honestly.
Right. Well, maybe not everybody in the car community, but everybody that's involved in the car show community, where it's show cars, stance cars, whatever. Anybody that, you know, has 3-piece wheels, this is like the thing that is gatekept, or gatekept.
Gatekept, I believe.
Gatekept.
Yeah.
So the way that it applies is just that, you know, somebody will see, maybe on Instagram or in person, whatever, they'll see somebody set up on a car, they'll see, you know, a crazy set of wheels, they'll have, I mean, something that would draw people in would just be something that has big lips, and they're like, wow, you know, how could they run such big lips on that car? I have the same car, blah, blah, blah. And so they go to ask, hey, what are your wheel specs? Or like, what size lips are those? Blah, blah, blah. And the owner restricts that information. They feel as though they're going to be
the only one that has that set up for
some, like, gatekeeping is very much, it's an ego-driven thing where it's, you know, an owner of something or somebody that has something that they feel like they worked hard for, or that they are only deserving of it. And so they are not willing to share that information with other people. And as that applies to wheel specs, it's just like somebody asking you, hey, what's your wheel specs? I have the same car. They may not necessarily be trying to copy you. Maybe they just want...
Just trying to get reference?
They just want a basis, which, you know, for me, that's so important. When you're building a car, like, you need to have something to base it off of.
Yeah.
And what I did, you know, if you are in a situation where you're like trying to get wheel specs from somebody and they're being a dickhead and not telling you, go and find the stock wheel specs of your stock wheels, and then use the, what is it? No, it's not the tire stretch. Wheel fitment.
I was literally thinking about that as you were. I didn't know.
I was going to say that there's a website that has like a configurator thing where if you enter in the stock wheel specs, it'll obviously show a diagram of how that is in comparison to like the offset. And then you could just you can enter in like the original setup and then enter in the new, and then that will tell you how much further inboard or outboard it's going to sit. In comparison to like Fender or whatever.
Fucking bro,
and
shout out to the
that
dev.
will help an absolute ton. So this is me trying to aid some of the gatekeeping here, where people just don't want to share wheel specs, and if you're in that position, there are ways around it. Granted, not everybody's going to stop being a dickhead. People just feel entitled. But yeah, that is a way around it.
No, shout out. Sorry, I kept trying to interrupt you.
No, you're fine.
So sorry,
but
no, shout out to the dev of that website. Honestly, like, that's been around literally since I got into this. It's super simple, no frills.
I want to make sure that I
free,
have that website correct.
And it has helped me on every single one of my cars. Not that I've ever done, you know, fucking gotten scientific about fitment like Liam has, but like, just what an awesome resource.
Okay,
you know what I mean?
It's called willtheyfit.com. I don't know if it's the same one that you've used, but this is the one that I've always used.
Yeah, no, that's the one. Yeah. That's the one.
But so basically, you enter in, I mean, you don't have to enter in the tire information, but you can enter in the tire stretch information, then you just enter the width and the offset, and it shows you a cool little diagram where it shows the before specs and then the after specs. And so from that, you can kind of gauge, you know, how far outboard it's going to sit as compared to your stock setup, or maybe another set of wheels that you have specs for that you know how they sit. And yeah, if you're trying to measure up on your car, like set your camber levels exactly where you want to have them, blah, 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 and then just measure from that, or the other way around, do the measurements first and then kind of figure out how much camber you would need to have to then bring that back under the fender, or, you know, for the desired fitment. So
there's all that to say, there are ways around people being like that. But obviously, the point that we're making in the context of this episode is like, why? Like, look, man, I hate to burst your bubble, but like, you are not going to be the only one that has a setup like yours. I'm so sorry, but there are like people around the world doing the same thing that we're all doing. Mm-hmm. At this point, I am a genuine believer that there are no completely original ideas. If that makes anybody sad, I'm sorry, but like. Right. It doesn't have to, you know what I mean? It's like, that's one of the cool things to me about cars is like, you can have a very similar or almost the same setup as somebody, but if you put in that little bit of extra effort to like, you know, do stuff that they have not or whatever, right? That shit matters.
Well, like, I think that, like, of course, like I said, it's an ego-driven thing. Mm-hmm. I do not care what your excuse is for like not sharing your wheel specs. Whatever your excuse is, it doesn't matter. If I'm staring at you right now. If if you're trying to explain to me why you won't share your wheel specs, I'm literally going to tell you the same thing every time. It's your fucking ego. Turn it off.
Yeah.
Like, it's such a strange, gatekeeping is such a strange thing. And I understand it somewhat. I get it. I've been, I'm not going to say I've been in that position, but I definitely years ago, I understood why it was a thing. Mm-hmm. Now that I'm in a position where I have a cool show car and people will be asking me for my wheel specs all the time, I'm happy to share because, one, I know that the majority of people are not going to copy what I'm doing because my car is not that easy to copy. Everything that I've done on my car has been pretty much 100% custom and one-off. Granted, it looks fairly similar to a lot of the other VIP builds that are out there, but I know that I did everything myself and I was very particular about how I did it. So I know that nobody's going to copy me, but also if somebody did want to copy me, that is the biggest form of flattery ever. If somebody literally copy-pasted my car and they actually went through the same amount of work and trial and tribulations that I did, I'd be incredibly proud of that.
You just fucking have both of them at your fucking booth.
Dude, that would be
just
insane.
Just the same car.
That would be so insane. You know what's really funny? So I used to have a twin to my car. It wasn't the exact same, but Dallas Kid had a UCF 10 Celsius that was white, silver, two-tone. And we never intentionally matched, but he had gold Bazreyas on it, and he got gold tint to match the Bazreyas. I had always planned that I was going to do silver chrome tint to match my chrome wheels. And yeah, it just kind of worked out that these look kind of similar. They follow that same theme. And then especially when he had the walled lip kit on his car, our cars look so good next to each other. And there were so many people that if his car was at a show and mine wasn't, people would come up to him and be like, damn, dude, your car looks sick. I'm like, that's not my car. It's not even it's not even the same. Yes, it's an LS400 technically, but it's not even the same chassis. It's not even the same generation. It was such a funny thing. But yeah, wheel specs, I kind of get it, but at the same time, it 100% comes down to ego. And so if you want to act like you don't have an ego, but you are gatekeeping, you're wrong. You do have an ego. That is not my opinion. I think that is actually a thing that's in place. There is no reason for you not to share that information, because if you are not sharing that information, it's because you don't want other people to have that, because you feel like you are the only one that is deserving of that. And I'm gonna let you know right now, anybody that is putting in the work on those chassis will be able to eventually figure out what your specs are anyway. So you're keeping it a secret for no reason. I can walk up to the majority of LS400s and within 10 mil or within 5 millimeters of offset, I can figure out what wheel specs are. If I know the width of your wheels on an LS400, I know whereabouts your specs are because I know the chassis so well. So you keeping it such a secret is utterly pointless and it's redundant, because anybody that knows the chassis well enough will figure it out.
And anybody that doesn't is eventually going to find that person that does and will openly volunteer that information to be helpful, and all of a sudden, you're just even more of a dick.
Right. People
it's so strange.
And you know what's funny? Me talking about chrome tint. Uh-huh. Chrome tint was something that was gatekept for a really long time. So sorry. So sorry. It's because the topic is gatekeeping.
I could just let him keep doing it and be like, oh, British people.
Hey, don't be gatekeeping the way that I be saying gatekeeping, all right? No, chrome tint was gatekept for such a long time. There were people 4 years ago that, were getting chrome tint on their cars, and it started becoming a bit of a trend. People were like, yo, that's sick, where do I get that? Everyone was like, don't tell him where we can get this. And it's fucking annoying. And funny story with that, when I got chrome tint, I was like, well, everyone's being a dickhead about this and doesn't want to share it. I'm going to be the one guy that does, and I'm also going to try and work with the company that makes it and help promote it for them, because I want to bring them sales, blah, blah, blah. And so I set up this deal thing with this company where I was like, yeah, I'd already bought the chrome tint. It wasn't a sponsorship. They didn't send me anything. They didn't fucking pay me.
Yeah.
I was like, hey, I want to promote you guys. I don't know if you'd be willing to do a discount code or whatever. I just want to get this shit out to the people that want it.
Yeah.
Like there's a demand for it and like nobody's telling them. And so I like bought this chrome tint, and then it was a few months that went by until my car was like ready for me to put it on. And I went to put it on and the tint was fucking garbage.
Really?
It was so bad. And so I like, the video had to go live because it was like a few days before an event where like everybody was going to see the car.
Yeah.
And so I just kind of beat around the bush and was like, yeah, there's been some fuck ups with the, you know, the materials. Like I was supposed to be sharing this with you guys, but I don't want to right now because I don't want to make it look bad on them, blah, blah, blah. And I reached out to them and they were like, yeah, we'll take care of it. And they never did. And like literally it got to a point where like I would hit them up maybe like once a month and I was like, hey, could you send that replacement material? And they just started ignoring me. And then it turned out that they were like a really piece of shit
I was going to say, it sounds like you kind of dodged a bullet. Yeah.
Yeah, I did. And so if you guys do want good chrome tint, you can go to newsolis.com. It is not a car enthusiast related thing. It's just the place that I know a lot of people that have good chrome tint have gone through. There's a lot of smaller companies that are like car community based. And this company that I'm talking about was one of them. I can't speak for the quality of the other ones, but the one that I worked with was absolutely terrible. And so maybe avoid some of those that are just, you know, trying to milk you guys because you're car enthusiasts and you
don't get chrome tint because you don't deserve it.
Yeah, you don't deserve it. You can't find this. But newsolis.com is the place that I would use. But anyways, let's talk about some other things that apply for gatekeeping stuff.
I just think, just one more quick thing that makes me laugh, right?
Yeah.
I found somebody that had a TSX set up, like wheel set up in a way that I really, really liked for the idea that I have for the way I want to set up mine. And dude, it's like, it sounds so bad, but it took all of 3 seconds for me to just like scan through like his posts and his captions and stuff. And I was like, I could literally ask this man what the wheel specs were, and he absolutely would not tell me. I could literally just tell by like his online... his like aesthetic.
Maybe don't assume that, but also the way that gatekeeping is now, I understand why you would assume.
But well, to my credit, yes, there was an assumption there, and I'm sorry, but I'm also not, because there was somebody asking about his wheel specs on basically every one of those posts, and he never responded. So yes, I'm assuming, but I'm also probably right. But you know, maybe I'm a dick. I don't know.
Hey, I
just thought it was funny that like I have seen the type of person that's like that about their wheel specs so many times that I was able to look at that and make an educated guess.
Yeah.
That's how that was going to be.
Yeah, I'll reveal my old wheel specs on my old setup and my new ones. The old ones with 10.5 fucking +3 with the spaces on them for the fitment that I had, and then 11.5 plus. Fuck, I don't even remember fully. It might have been +15 or +12, something along those lines. Fuck. Pointless me telling you. Fuck. I know the new specs. The new specs are 10.5 -25, 11.5 -27.
I could never.
So thick boys, but yeah, those are my wheel specs if you're curious. You know, one thing that I do really want to talk about, just me being a photographer. Gatekeeping comes into photography and videography stuff a lot. There's quite a few things with this that you could dive into. I don't want to get too far into it because it's a little bit removed from car stuff, but simple things like locations is a huge thing. Majority of the time when people start asking or like blowing you up about where a spot is to shoot at, it's usually a pretty common, like well-known spot anyway. And so it's like you trying to like hide that information is so redundant. Like I was saying with the wheel specs, they'll find it out one way or another.
Gatekeeping public property.
No, literally, it's the dumbest thing ever. Like if you can see a clear landmark in something, they can figure it out. The only reason they're asking you is because you may be able to give them the direct answer where they don't have to work that hard to find it. Yeah. And I get that you have the ego and you don't want to fucking give, because you worked hard to find it. You worked so hard to find the public place. Dude, there was a photographer in Louisville that used to like claim these spots.
He would claim them?
Oh, he'd make these videos where he'd be like going off about people using his spots.
That is the dumbest shit I've ever heard in my life.
They were the most common, well-known spots in the entire city. Like they were literally across the river from like the skyline under the bridges.
Honestly,
anybody that can look at a map knows where they are.
You could tell me that they were unbelievable, hard to find spots. I don't give it the fact that he was like, "This is mine. You can't bro."
Do you know where it comes from? It comes from the insecurity that somebody might do it better than them. I think that actually could be a lot. That's
actually
things.
I think
even with wheel specs, I think a lot of it comes from insecurity.
That really
maybe somebody could.
I hadn't really thought about that. Yeah, I haven't really thought about that.
Gatekeeping comes from the insecurity of
somebody's going to do it better than you.
Somebody might be able to do it better than you. And that's why people don't want to share their wheel specs, is because they're worried somebody could get the same specs and make their car look better than yours.
Yo, we just, holy shit, we just fucking ran right into that.
All right, episode's done.
Put a fork in it.
Damn.
No, fuck. That's.
I was so high on that ego train too. I was like, yeah, it's all about your ego. Insecurity plays into ego too, but at the end of the day, I think a lot of it is insecurity.
Yeah. Well, I mean, now that it's been framed that way, I would absolutely agree with that.
You know what's really funny too?
At least with parts and setups. There are other things with
But the word this may have a good effect too, because the word insecure, saying someone's insecure about something, that hurts somebody's feelings way more than saying they have an ego. Saying they have an ego is almost
you damn right.
Yeah, saying someone has an ego is almost like rewarding them. It's like you're deserving of having an ego.
Yeah.
Saying they're insecure is very much like, oh, you poor baby.
We're coming for your ass.
So for any of you
of you
that don't want to share your shit, you poor baby. I hope that whatever's going on in your life, whoever hurt you, I hope that it gets better.
This man's looking in the camera and everything saying this shit, bro. He's coming for your ass. No, I mean, you're absolutely right.
I mean, if anybody does want to tell us the opposite, then that's totally fine. But
I feel like that's another unwritten rule of this podcast is it's like, if you think we are just horrendously wrong,
please tell us.
Please tell us.
That's the point.
Yeah, I would like to know if somebody can give me a compelling counter to anything that we're saying, just because I like to hear different perspectives.
Nice dance.
Yeah, thanks. Y'all didn't see that. I did a little shoulder thing.
But back to photo stuff, the location thing. It is kind of funny. It really is. And granted, I know that there's going to be gray areas of any of these topics where it's like, well, to a certain extent, you don't want to share that because it's special. And, that is what it is. I'm not going to agree or disagree. But when it comes to photo locations, unless you did something that was legitimately really special, say you shot inside of an airport hangar, clearly you had to get permission to do that, blah, blah, blah. And then it's why wouldn't you just share that with people and say, we rented this airport hangar?
Yeah.
Why would you gatekeep it? Because you're gatekeeping it for no reason. And then you're also sending someone else off on a tangent to try and figure out how you did it without actually being able to get an answer. As a community, we're supposed to help each other out. That's how the community improves. That's how things get better. That's how things grow. And if you just are not willing to share anything, then the community can't grow. Or we get a few people like myself that will just go out and figure it out on our own and do it better than you. Whoops.
Well, it's and that
was really cocky.
For me, though, that's, as per usual, the community or being against the community to whatever degree is the undertone here, because like we said, gatekeeping is you keeping shit to yourself for a number of reasons, generally speaking, because you don't want somebody to do it better than you.
Right.
Bro, if somebody does it better than you, first of all, I get how that would be kind of taking the wind beneath your wings if you end up on Instagram one day and finally see the end results of somebody and you're like, fuck.
Yeah.
They just blew me out of the I get it. I'm not going to act like that wouldn't be a shitty feeling, but the thing about that is maybe if that were to happen, use that as all right, time to reevaluate, time to change something up. And if you're somebody that's just really secure in yourself, where you're just no, man, I don't give a shit. I built my car how I wanted to build it. I don't give a fuck if theirs looks like mine or better than mine. This is my car. I want it to be built this way, and it is.
Thing. Yeah, if you're happy and confident enough in your own like thing, then you shouldn't really be worried about what anybody else is doing.
And it's just like, you know, my other thing that will come in a little bit later in this episode that's kind of like the other flavor of this is if you are passionate about something, about a community, right? And it's like, you know, like in this case, it's like a hobby, or there's like a subculture where everybody's doing something. Everybody's creating something. The idea that you are not going to share information that could not only like further the creativity cultivated in that community, like, what are you thinking? Like, the part that I can understand at a very superficial level is like, you don't want people to just like come in and just be a fucking bull in a china shop. Right? But that's the difference between gatekeeping and like going out of your way to like give people the information, but then also like put it into context for them. Right? Because if somebody asks you something, right, and you are in a position, I guess, to like gatekeep that one thing, you can do that. You can be a dickhead and you can go out of your way to gatekeep and just try and exclude them. Well, you know, they're not part of, I don't want them to do this, and this.
Right.
Or you can like directly educate them, you know, and it's like you can put what you're telling them into the context of what they're asking and be like, hey, like, you can also check out this other stuff that pertains to this. Look, man, I'm going to tell you, if you give somebody good advice and you also give them context and more resources, if they're actually interested in doing like what it is that you're doing, they're not going to take a shit on it. And if they do, everybody else in your community can just fucking ignore them.
Well, like, so like kind of playing into that a little bit, you know, maybe somebody who is in the position to gatekeep something might be under the impression that somebody else asking them about it, whatever, that they're going to do a shitty job of it and make it look bad or blah, blah, blah. Well, educating them and showing them the right ways is a way that, you know, uplifts the community as a whole, because it gives them the knowledge or the things that they may need to go in the right direction. And then they're not fucking up, and then they're not in a position where you would, I mean, people who gatekeep usually bully people too.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
You wouldn't be in a position to be bullying somebody because they're going to do it right, because you gave them the right tools that they needed to do it right.
That's what I mean when I was talking about like the context thing, is if you, I always run back to the kite racers thing. I can't help it. That has just been like in my mind for so long because I've just seen it for so long. But like, if somebody asks you for one, like a question, and let's say you just openly, you know, share that information, right?
That's one thing.
If you go even further and like give them context and give them more pathways to other information, bro, it's like I just said, if you do that and somebody's like entering into whatever it is, whatever hobby thing you have going on, and you give them not only the information that they ask for, but go out of your way to give them like really good resources to look into what is already there. If they're actually like into it, they're not just going to be like, yeah, I'm just going to take the original thing and fuck off. Thanks anyway. Like,
right.
You know what I mean? If you give them, if they're already interested in asking you that question, odds are they're going to be really interested to learn even more.
Right.
And the more of that information that you give them, the more like hope, as it were, you can have that they're going to they're going to become a functioning member and a contributing member of your subculture a lot faster than if everybody they fucking went to was like, you better ask somebody.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, it doesn't, if you are passionate about the thing that you're doing in the community that you're in, like, if you're at a point in your head, like you said, at that point, it just becomes an ego thing. And it's nothing less than that, because like, if you're gatekeeping, you're not volunteering information, you're excluding people, you are literally doing that because to some degree in your head, you're telling yourself like, oh, well, you know, me and my friends have been, looking at this and studying this and doing all this, and this for years. We're the only ones. No, the fuck you're not.
Right.
Other people are allowed to be interested in this. Now, the decision becomes yours where you can either basically try and add another functioning, contributing member to this community that you're a part of.
Or you exclude them.
Or, you know what I mean? Like, and the thing is, too, let's say that it's like I was just talking about. If you give somebody the information they asked for and more,
and they decide to go against it,
and they decide,
that's up to them. But that shouldn't change what kind of a person you decide to be. That's where it really comes back to a personal level. It's like if you provide people with advice, blah blah blah, and they don't take it, that's on them. That's not on you, and that should not be like a choice for you where you're like, well, I'm just going to be a shithead because like these people don't want to take this information. Well, not everybody has to, and not everybody will, but I promise you, the people that will, that is invaluable to them.
Yeah, well, and not for nothing, like I'm gonna quell your fears here. Anybody that gatekeeps on some level for that reason, that you think somebody's gonna tarnish the reputation or what, bro, one person is not gonna fucking crash your whole party. I promise they're not.
So I want to play devil's advocate a little bit.
Okay, by all means.
And talk about something that, back to photo stuff, applies to me and my life and quite a few other people, and may apply to certain areas of the car community, right? Gatekeeping, very much as a whole, with things on a personal level, with, cars. Like, I'm talking about things that are owned that are personal, right? With me, in my experience, I wanted to say, for example, editing. Photo editing.
Say that, yeah.
This is something that it's somewhat gate-kept, but it's maybe not necessarily talked about all that much. And I think the reason for that is because, with photography stuff, at the end of the day, it's a business, right? And editing is very much a thing that takes years to develop. It's a style thing. It's something that, for me, it has taken me the better part of 10 years to really figure out what it is exactly that I like with my style of photography. And so when I edit pictures, that is 10 years of experience of me like figuring out certain situations and things and being like, okay, this is exactly how I want my images to look. And this, if you see it somewhere on the internet, wherever, it's easily recognizable as my picture.
Which, really quick, I just want to emphasize something that you just said that's really important for anybody to keep in mind about really artwork, any of that stuff. What Liam just said, if this is the first time that you're hearing anybody say it, please keep this in mind. When creators are charging you money to, do a commission for you,
you're not paying just for that thing.
You are not look, I get that it's hard to understand, especially for people that are just very pedestrian when it comes to creative stuff. And if you are, look, that's totally fine. But just on a very logical, I'm so close to tapping the table, and I'm not going to do it. And just in a very logical way, you need to realize that the way that person places value on their work is not because they're self-involved. It's because he has 10 years of effort and successes and failure and blood, sweat, and tears into getting where he is at.
Right.
That is what you're being charged for. You're not being charged because Liam is self-involved. And that goes for any creator of any time.
It applies to any industry. People who get paid $100 an hour in the tech industry or whatever, for example, they get paid $100 an hour because they're extremely knowledgeable on that thing. It's the same thing for creative stuff. But back to the gatekeeping side of it.
Sorry, that was a little long.
No, you're fine. It's a necessary thing to say, and I'm glad that we can say that for creatives out there. But editing styles, this is something that I gatekeep, and I've never put that title on it, and I usually wouldn't, but because of this episode, I'm going to. I don't share how I edit because it's mine. And it's not from a position of granted, we can go back and say it's an ego thing. Sure, you could take it as that, actually. Yeah, maybe it is an ego thing. But I have worked, for 10 years to develop that style, make it unique to me. And at the end of the day, it's a business. It is not a personal thing. If something is personal, you really don't have any grounds to be keeping it a secret. Somebody else copying it doesn't affect you. But somebody else using my editing style, something that I have developed over a long period of time that is unique to me and makes me stand out from other people, if somebody else uses that, they can then ruin and tarnish my business.
I'd like to posit something.
Sure.
So I am a traditional media artist. Liam knows this. Probably not very many other people do know this, but I'm a traditional media artist, right?
Do you want to explain what that is?
So, I mean, it's just like, I do digital art now, but like up until very recently, I was always using like pen, paper, ink, that kind of stuff, right? So the way that I was creating things, I obviously had no other choice but to use my hand.
Right.
So that's my hand, my wrist, my muscles, my fingers, all of these things that have built up muscle memory and define the quality of my work, right? And so if somebody wanted to copy exactly what I was doing, they can't steal my fucking hand.
No, they can't.
Right? And so when you compare that to the photography thing, even though, yes, in the world of photography, because it's all digital, you can technically steal your fucking hand. But in my head, your editing style and the things that you do to do that editing, that is your hand.
Right.
Right? So it's like it has to bridge a little bit of like, well, physically you can steal that because it is digital and it can be quantified. Mm-hmm. But like, for that reason, I don't really think that's gatekeeping.
Yeah.
I think that's just kind of like the evolution of being creative on a digital medium. Yeah. You understand what I mean?
Yeah.
So for me, I don't really see that as gatekeeping in a super destructive way.
I don't consider anything gatekeeping where it's a business. Like certain companies, if you invent something...
Intellectual property.
It's intellectual property. Mm-hmm. You own the rights to that. If somebody uses it, copies it, steals it, that's theft.
Right.
Somebody asking for your wheel specs and like getting the same set of wheels, that's not theft because the company that makes the wheels will also make those same wheels.
Right,
same
right.
It's not theft. You don't personally own, like, unless you have a patent on your fucking wheel specs, I don't want to hear it. But yeah, when it comes to business stuff, like it's a different thing. And so the only reason I want to bring this up is because I feel like some people could, get that confused, or maybe somebody could come at my neck and be like, well, you're talking about all this stuff, but when somebody's asked you for an editing tutorial or for you to sell presets, you've been against it. And it's like, yeah, because that's my business.
Right.
If I sold presets, I may make more money than I would through photography, but photography is an express thing for me. Mm-hmm. Like I express myself through that, and I also get paid to do it. If I then just sell the presets, then yes, it's great. It helps a lot of other people, but then
it takes it hand.
Yeah, it takes
You're
it away.
Selling your hand.
It takes it away from myself, and then it's like, okay, well, I can't really enjoy that the same way I did now because it's just openly available for other people. It's never really about the money. It's just like it's mine.
Right.
And yeah, at the end of the day, okay, that's an ego thing. But when it comes to business, I don't think that it's gatekeeping.
And that's what I mean, man. Like I hope you understand what I mean about like the hand analogy. Because like you said, it's intellectual property, yes, but for me, from what I guess we could call a more philosophical standpoint, is like, it's just like I said, it's like stealing your hand, right? Nobody can steal my fucking hand and draw and create the exact same way I do. Mm-hmm. They can't do it. It's obviously impossible, right? But because of the evolution of technology that people use to be creative now,
it's a lot more accessible.
And because it's quantifiable, you know what I mean? You can feasibly do that. So for somebody just with like an artistic mindset that is concerned with artistic integrity, the way you edit photos, that's your hand.
Right.
That is your hand.
Anyways, I want to get stuck on it too much.
Yeah.
Let's talk about some other things that are gatekept within the car community. We have brands written down. People using. The violent thing was kind of an example of that. Is a lot of people just using that same font, but it's also like it doesn't need to be gatekept. And you would have noticed that when Ben was on here, he very openly said the name of the font. He's not hiding it from anybody. Mm-hmm. Like, granted, we're coming out and being like, well, why is everybody using the same thing?
Right.
Still not gatekeeping it. It's like, this is the name of the font. If you really wanted to go and copy it, you can, but you're going to be perceived this way. But other things with brands, like designs, for sure. Like, I mean, that comes into art stuff too. Like, people reuse designs. I don't want to get you started on it because I already know you have a lot to say about not fast stuff.
I'll run this into one sentence. Currently, this car community is where originality goes to die.
Yes.
Like, continue.
But that's actually a good point, though. Originality stuff is one of the bigger reasons that people feel that they need to gatekeep. And I think that there's a difference between gatekeeping and, like, just protecting intellectual property. Mm-hmm. Like I said a few moments ago, if something is a business, if somebody doing something that you did negatively then affects, your livelihood, then yes, I think it's okay to protect that thing. But if it has no effect on you besides hurting your like ego, then fuck off. Like, it's really not that necessary. But yeah, as it like applies to brands, people, reusing designs or like stealing ideas from designs, or like, I don't know. I don't even know where gatekeeping applies into that. Like, if somebody messages me and asks me, hey, what designer did you use for that piece? I guess I do gatekeep that a little bit. But the reason for that is because I'm a brand in the car community, and if you're another brand in the car community, you're technically competition. As much as I don't ever like compare myself or like the idea of competition, if I then provide, who designed this piece, and you because you like that piece, you went and worked with that designer to get a piece that looks very similar. Yeah. Then we have two things from two different brands that are then like extremely similar. Right. And you basically just use the thing that I provided. And if I didn't make money, if I didn't rely on selling merchandise and branding to pay for my bills and for me to live, it wouldn't be a big deal.
Oh, I know Liam well enough to know that if all of that stuff was not mixed in and like money wasn't an object, just in a hypothetical situation, Liam would be the first person to be shouting out all of the designers that he uses to get more people to support them. So
right, and I do a good enough job myself with supporting designers. Like I pay designers. I work with a ton of different designers, and I work with them consistently. All of the guys the majority of the guys that I work with and have worked with multiple times, I'm consistently coming back to them. And over the course of this year, I will be coming back to them more and more often. Me not providing who they are is because I don't want another clothing brand in the community to produce the same thing as me. Right. These designers have a specific style, just like photo editing, that they have developed. And if I give that to other people, that will affect my sales. Right. And I don't want this to come across as like, fuck other brands, blah, blah, blah. I want other brands to come up. And usually when somebody reaches out to me and they're like, hey, I have a brand, I'm getting into this stuff, who did that design for you? I will not give them the exact designer, but I will give them the tools that they need to find a designer. Right. I will provide them with a website, a service, or like hashtags or whatever on Instagram. I'll give it to you right now. If you guys are interested in looking into design stuff for merchandise, hashtag badge design is a amazing place on Instagram to start. Just go on there, search through, find things that look like whatever style you're into, and deep dive. Go onto their accounts, go onto other reshare pages for design stuff, and just find artists. That is the best way to do it. That's how I did it. And if you find the same artists as me, that's totally fine. You did the work yourself.
And that right there is the context I was talking about. Just by you saying that,
I'm providing you with the tools.
You cut the beginning of the path for anybody that just heard you say that. Mm-hmm. The rest of the path, they can do for themselves.
Yeah, exactly.
And like, who the fuck is that hurting?
And that is
who is that hurting?
That is why I don't consider that gatekeeping. Is because no, I'm not providing you with the exact answer, because if I did, it negatively affects something that is my livelihood. If it wasn't something that was related to my livelihood and me paying my bills, then I would just share you the blunt answer. But because I am a good person and I want to help the community grow and I want to see people do good things and other brands grow, I will set you up. If you're asking me, I will set you up with the tools that you need to find the information that you want. And that is where gatekeeping and education need to tie in. Mm-hmm. Gatekeeping is a huge thing. It's a huge problem, and it has this negative connotation around it where, it sucks. It is a fucking stupid thing, and it's obviously, like we mentioned, insecurities and ego-driven. But there are ways to go around this stuff where you can help people. You can make the choice to educate other people. And I think that if you're not doing that, you don't really need to be, or you shouldn't be recognized as a good person in the community. Like if you're just somebody that's all about yourself and what you're doing, your car may be cool, but end of the day, you're you, and if you're a sucky person, people just aren't going to fuck with you. Like, it doesn't matter how cool your car is.
I'm sitting here thinking about it. Honestly, I think it would be relevant to make a distinction. Mm-hmm. There's gatekeeping, and then there's trade secrets.
Yeah.
That's what you have.
Right, and I think other people on their high horse think that their wheel specs is like a trade
secret, and
it's not. I guarantee you,
it's just so super not. Like
somebody 10 years ago already ran your specs. Shit, somebody 20 years ago already ran your specs. You don't matter.
That's what I'm saying, dude. Look, I'm sorry to burst your bubble, but there are no original ideas anymore. You know what's important when you have an idea? Execution.
Always
execution. Every fucking time, it's execution. And
we should do that every time we come across a serious point.
We need to get a fucking button. We need to get a button for it.
For a whisper mode?
I don't know. No, something to just be like, I don't know. We'll figure it out.
I found it.
Nice cock.
Execution.
Nicely executed cock.
Yes. Every time that you execute something, you get the wee bowling nice cock meme.
But no, so that's the differentiation in my head. Yeah. As I'm like hearing you talk and kind of thinking about
trade secrets.
Yeah, there's a distinction between gatekeeping and trade secrets because, like you said, with business, as the more that you talk about it, the more solid the line of distinction became between trade secrets and gatekeeping.
Right.
Right? Because in this context, gatekeeping is fucking useless. Yeah, and it's useless.
I don't want anybody to get the impression from this that I would gatekeep stuff to do with business. I do have a lot of people that run other brands that will reach out to me, and they could run a bigger brand than I do, but maybe they're just curious about something that I did. I am more than happy to talk to anybody about any of that stuff. I love sharing any of the knowledge and stuff that I have. So if you do own a business, a brand, whatever, you're interested in growing it, maybe you see something that I do and you're curious about it, feel free to ask me, because I'm more than happy to share stuff all the time. Even about the podcast, people have asked me, what equipment you use. Why would I not tell people what equipment? It literally says
you
Rode.
Can't have as good sound quality as us.
It says Rode on the side of the fucking microphone. Like somebody would be able to figure it out if they wanted to.
They're gonna make a podcast called Stance Sub.
It's like me. It's like, yo, what computer do you use? Apple, it's right there, dude. I'm not gonna fucking hide that.
So I want to tell him myself. Mm-hmm. I want to tell him myself because I look at the gatekeeping as far as brands go differently because I have been, and in certain seconds, am still sometimes guilty of this. Mm-hmm. When I had I ran Not Fast. It was always at the tip of my tongue when I heard or saw like a new brand that was just a watered down version of generally another watered down version of another brand. Mm-hmm. It was always very much like, great, another one. That's what we need. Yeah. More mud in the water. So I'll own that. Yeah. Like, I'm not even sure if that's gatekeeping. I think that's just me being a bitter old man. But like,
yeah, more than likely.
Yeah. So it's but no. In regards to that, it's like that in and of itself goes back to execution, but also trade secrets, right? Because like this is why I could go on a 2-hour fucking thing about this car community being where originality goes to die because Instagram is what it is and there's zero barrier to entry to create like a page that can easily become a brand when you discover that screen printing and decal making is a thing.
Right.
Like it's just, look, if you want to make a brand, great. Right. Do it, right? But put the fucking effort in to not be a watered down version of a watered down version of a watered down version of an original brand. Like,
well, I mean,
do something different.
Brand stuff is a whole nother conversation that we're definitely going to do an episode on.
That one's going to be a 3-hour episode. It's going to be 90% me talking.
Usually the brands that have, purpose and are doing something right will come out.
Oh, you'll know. Yeah. Well, that's kind of what I mean is it's like, if you're just going to come in here and either just half-ass it or like quarter-ass it, why even do it?
Yeah.
Just like bide your time until you're ready to like really do so. But like,
so,
you know, like why?
when I posted up on my story, just ask like, hey, let's talk about gatekeeping and, you know, what are some of the topics related to car stuff that come up? A lot of them were the same. I want to say that like 60% of these people saying wheel specs. That's why we covered it right off the bat. But there was one in here that one person mentioned, and I feel like it needs to get mentioned more often. And I did actually have this conversation with somebody yesterday. So first off, shout out to Maris. She said being overly critical of female builds just because it's a female. And then she put in parentheses, design choice, if it's an automatic, that kind of thing. This is something that I see all of the time. And granted, I don't want to touch on female enthusiast stuff too much, just because, number one, I'm not a female. Matt is also not a female.
I'm not.
And so we will never speak for females as enthusiasts. But we can speak on some of the things that we've seen, some of the observations, and give our opinions on it. And granted, for any female listeners that are listening, I do want to do an episode or multiple episodes on female enthusiasts. I think it would be really, really valuable.
I feel like nobody talks about that, honestly. Well, like at least head on like that.
And nobody should if you're not directly involved with it.
Right.
I don't think that any male should be talking on behalf of females. We can talk about our observations.
I'm sorry, that's more what I'm referring to. Right. Is like what you're about to do, where it's just what we're observing.
And I want to do episodes. I think it would be really valuable to have a few different female enthusiasts on here to talk about things and some of the things that they've experienced. Because granted, all of them are going to have different experiences, and to create a good conversation, you need to have different perspectives. And so that is something that I do want to get to at some point. And so that's why, you know, for anybody that has brought it up and said, hey, do an episode on females, I'm not doing that on my own because I'm not the authority on that subject. And frankly, nobody should be.
You're not gatekeeping.
No, absolutely not. But specific to this thing, what Maris said, being overly critical of female builds just because it's a female. I've seen this, and at some point, I feel like in my younger years, I may have been guilty of it at some point. But it does happen, and it does happen often. Quite often, people will walk up to a car that is, you know, a cool car, but they'll pick out every single flaw on it because the owner is a female. And they wouldn't do the same thing for the same exact car that could be parked 10 feet away that is male. It's because it's a female-owned car. They're going to walk up to it because they'll say, that, oh, there's all this hype around this car because the owner is female. Granted, the female is just an enthusiast like anybody else. Mm-hmm. They are just somebody who likes cars. You don't need to make it a gender-specific thing. But they'll walk up to this car because it grabs their attention because a female owns it, and then feel the need to judge everything on that car because it's owned by a girl, whereas they wouldn't do the same for a car that is the same, 10 feet away. And to me is insane.
I'll be totally honest with you, and this may feel like virtual signaling for some people, what I'm about to say, but like, I'll be honest with you, bro, it's never even occurred to me. Like, yeah. I honestly, in most cases, don't even know like the owners from Instagram enough to know that it's owned by a girl.
Yeah.
It could be owned by a girl, a guy, like whoever. I either fuck with it or I don't.
Right.
You know what I mean?
And it's like the only reason that I like know that this is a thing is because I think that maybe like 5 years ago when I was pretty immature about stuff, I was probably one of those people that like was bothered by females getting a lot of attention for like mediocre cars. And it's still like it happens here or there because there's certain, and this isn't gender specific, there is certain people that are involved in car stuff for the wrong reasons whatsoever. Oh, yeah. But girls obviously catch the wrong end of the stick because this is
there's less of them.
Yeah, because there's more focus. This is a male driven.
Yeah.
It's a male driven thing, and there's less women, and so they get the shitty end of this, which fucking sucks. But it does happen, and I have seen it happen, and at some point maybe I have been guilty of it. But like you were saying, I think that's actually a really, really good point, is that you don't notice. You just look at the cars as they are, cars.
Yeah. Well, and that's...
it's not the person that's assigned to it. And I think over the past 2-3 years, I've done the exact same thing. I just look at cars as a whole. If a car doesn't interest me, or it's like there's certain things on it that are not to my taste,
they're just
it doesn't fucking matter who owns it. And so, it literally does not matter. And if it is to my taste, I'm not then going to like pick apart little things on it. Like I may pick it apart because I'm really particular about stuff, but it has nothing to do whether they're male or female.
My unpopular opinion in regards to like female car enthusiasts is like, this is my one thing is when they base like a huge chunk of the identity of the car on the fact that they are a woman. Like,
yes.
Again, this is an unpopular opinion, but just for me, like, if you feel that sense of pride being a female car enthusiast, do your thing. My personal taste is just that, like, I don't see.
Well, it's because you don't care about the gender thing. But
so again, that's just my unpopular opinion.
On the other end of the spectrum with that, is that could be somebody who's a female enthusiast trying to actively encourage more and more people to be like, hey, I'm a female enthusiast. If you've ever been in that position where you want to get into cars but you're scared because people suck and blah, 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 and you get judged, this is me showing you that you can by, having that exaggerated, like, obviously this is a female-owned car, there's hearts all over it, blah, blah, blah. I don't mean to stereotype at all, guys. But
we'll probably like phase out of this one just because it'll be a lot better to have female input in this situation.
This is not something that like either of us really needs to talk about, but we do have to bring it up. It is something that does happen. People are overly picky about,
It's really important to talk about, honestly, because that's what I'm saying is it's like, it's like you said at the very beginning, we're not qualified to say what their experiences is, and we're not doing that. But what I was saying when I originally was like, I feel like nobody talks about this, is us talking about this right now is and would otherwise be the first time I have ever heard anybody approach this topic head on in any degree whatsoever.
No, well, I mean, there's other things that come into that too related to females. Like from my experience, I see a lot of issues that really, really bother me about female enthusiasts is that just people not necessarily taking them serious as enthusiasts. I think that it's pretty, oftentimes it's obvious to tell when somebody is an enthusiast about something and when somebody isn't. And I think in certain cases, there may be some females that are like amazing enthusiasts that like do everything themselves. They're exactly the same as any of the guys are. Like they're in the garage late at night, fucking working on shit, busting their knuckles, blah, blah, blah. And they maybe don't get recognized the same way as the guys because they're a female. They're just put on a pedestal because it's like, oh, they're a girl. And like, they don't ask for that. Right. I'm not saying that that's what they want. But they get put on this pedestal, and sometimes the work that they put in on cars and just being an enthusiast, as same as everybody else, gets ignored just because they're a female.
I do want to say this really quick, and this just like this is the disclaimer. I just realized it like hit me right in the middle of him saying something that we've been using the word female. And generally speaking, I realized in the context of what we're talking about, I understand why we both started using that word. But I'm going to like retroactively say that we were not doing that in a bad way. From now on, we will say women because that is what you are. There's all, the point is, y'all.
I was using female as a general term.
The point is we are
treading lightly.
Trying to be, treading lightly, but you know, we are both always strive to be as respectful as possible, which is why we want to have
these conversations,
women enthusiasts on this show because it's a valuable thing to talk about. But given that, we should probably like slide into something else.
Yes, let's absolutely do that. It's more and more people saying photo shoot stuff. Let's talk about paint and vinyl.
Oh, Lord of mercy.
Because this is a big thing that I see get gatekeeping, geek-caped. Today's episode is on geek-keeping. Today's episode is on goat-keeping. If your fence is not 4 feet tall, that motherfucker's going to jump over it. Anyways, paint. We'll do paint first because paint has like a little bit more depth to it, both literally and as we were talking about it in the conversation. Paint stuff, I see this happen all the time, right? And there's certain things to it that I understand and I get why it is gate-kept. For instance, custom paint codes. If somebody, let's use Evan's car for an example. Evans FRS is a crazy mustard yellow that has a stupid amount of flake in it. I call it spicy mustard. I think that should be the name for his paint. That is a completely one-off, custom-made paint code. It has to be custom mixed. It is not something that exists in a database. It might exist in a database now. I'm not sure. I don't know. But that's something that they came up with specifically for that car. And it's probably going to be something that's really hard to recreate. And so for certain reasons, I could understand why that would be gate kept, because it's unique to them. It's something
for the
that
record, I would see this as the hand analogy.
Yeah, it's like
that's how
it's a trade
see
secret
this.
almost. Yeah. And it's unique to the artist, the painter in this instance, that came up with
that's
it.
their hand.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But here's something that you do not need to gatekeep within talking about paint and cars. If you paint your car an OEM color from a different manufacturer to the car that you are painting, there is no reason for you to gatekeep that, because, like we've said on every other topic, if somebody wanted to find it out hard enough, they will find it out, because it exists in a database that anybody that owns a paint shop or knows anything about paint stuff can find. And so
there's like somebody at shows with the little paint checker guns just being like really sketchy. Like
honestly, somebody should do that. You know what would be really funny is people start going to car shows with like, I mean, no, people would be really upset. I was going to say for wheel specs, somebody like measures them on the spot, but people would be really upset because they don't want them touching the cars. Don't do that.
I would just be laughing at how hilarious that would look like in practice. Like you see some dude with like measuring tape
I know.
on the side
but
of the car.
I fully imagine there being a post in the near future of somebody that goes around to every painted car or every wrapped car and literally takes a picture of the sample next to it, and they're like, this is this color, and then just posts it all in an album on Facebook, and the whole world freaks out about it. Like, fuck this dude. He's leaking all of our fucking secrets. He's disrespecting my car. He's like, not even touching it. I mean, if you're touching it, that's another thing. Don't touch people's fucking cars. But
that's like, hands, boys.
I could imagine that happening, like somebody just taking the samples and being like, yep, this is this color.
Well, no, I do you know what I'm talking about with the paint checker? Like the little gun thing?
No.
That's literally, so when like legit shops paint match your car, they literally have like this little device that will fucking read will tell you the paint code.
What?
Yeah.
I thought that was just for like paint.
Thing.
I thought it was just for like paint thickness. I didn't realize it could actually like pick up on like the specific pigment.
To my understanding, I could, technically speaking, I could be wrong, but I am 90% sure that is a real thing, as I've seen my friend who does paint and body work use one on one of my old cars.
Oh shit.
So well, that's what I mean. It would be so funny if you like saw somebody walk around a show with it like really low and just click. They're just like walking around like getting paint codes.
That would be really funny. But yeah, it goes back to, you know, if you are fucking hiding something that is public knowledge or can be public knowledge, why? Why are you doing that?
You scared.
Yeah, you're scared that somebody else could paint their car the same color. Like, granted, if you picked a color that's really, really cool, say it's like a Miami blue from Porsche or whatever, and like it's special to you and you like it, I understand that you don't want somebody else to have the same color, especially if it's like the same car, but it's public knowledge. They can do that if they want. You don't own the patent to that color or that chassis.
On what you just said, this is just in my head. If you do have a paint color that's like sentimental to you for whatever reason, you can literally, all you got to do is add X amount of like flake or some other personal touch, and all of a sudden it can't be replicated exactly like yours.
So it comes back to the custom color. If you're in a position where you do not want someone else to have the same color as you, custom make it.
Exactly.
And then, okay, now we can move into talking about vinyl wrap, because this is where this gets even funnier. Vinyl wrap is considerably more accessible than paint. And for one, vinyl wrap, this is my opinion, I don't really fucking care about vinyl wrap, so anybody gatekeeping it to me is hilarious. Because there is literally a booklet with every color.
I was going to say, you all have the same fucking catalog.
And like
you guys all have the same book, so
if you're so unbelievably annoyed that somebody else could use the same color as you, paint your fucking car. If you're literally that worried about it, why are you vinyl wrapping your car? Vinyl wrap is the most accessible thing to change the color of your car. So anybody could use the same color as you. It's more likely to happen.
That runs into the same thing with wheels too. How it's like wait a little longer and save the money. Well, yeah. If you don't want to have to worry about somebody jacking your color,
right?
Save the money.
Yeah, go the extra mile.
I mean, I'm just as impatient as anybody else is to get this stuff like done and cooking and look how you want. But like, if that's gonna fucking keep you awake at night, like.
Literally, there's gonna be some people that aren't bothered by it at all, and so they will just do the more affordable option, blah blah blah. Right. But then, if you're so picky about what it is that you want, and you want no one else to have the same, you want to stand out, put in the extra work, put in the extra money. I don't want to hear you complaining if you weren't prepared to do that. You have no grounds to complain about anything if you're not prepared to go the extra mile to make it stand out. So for anybody that gatekeeps vinyl wrap,
stop it.
I'm not even going to call you a fucking idiot. I'm just going to laugh.
Just stop it.
It's so funny. Like, look, I'm not going to tell you what color it is because I don't want you to have the same color.
I'm like, bro, it's like, what if you're like at a meet, like, hey, bro, what's your wrap code? He's like, nah, dude, I don't. Dude just like pulls out the fucking catalog and just like looking at it, like comparing it to the guy's car. Dude, don't fucking do that, bro.
Yo.
Don't fucking do that. And he's just like, here, hold on, I almost got it.
That's a video idea.
Yo, oh my God.
That's a video idea. I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna dead ask, like, hopefully whoever I do this to is not gonna be listening to this. They probably won't. Usually if somebody's this much of an asshole,
yeah, they're probably not listening.
We only have the smart people on here. You guys are smart. But that would be such a funny video, going up to someone at a car show and just having a conversation and be like, yo, what wrap color is this? And then if they don't share it, I just pull the sample thing out of my back pocket and just go next to it and just swipe through until I find it. And they're just standing there like, dude, bro, what the fuck are you doing? Like, it's this color. I'll just be like, thanks. That would be really fun.
Honestly, it would.
It's like satire humor where you're exposing people for being just who they are. Yeah. It's Sacha Baron Cohen with his basically how Borat was and how Ali G, like his OG fucking show back in the day was. He'd use comedy to expose people for who they really are, especially like politicians and stuff. It's genius. And I think that would be a really fucking funny way to do that within the car community.
Well, now I want to see it happen because it was born in front of our very eyes.
I'm not being an asshole. I'm literally asking you for a color and you don't want to give it to me, so I just pull out the sample. I just find it myself.
Yeah, I just pull out the resource right in front of them.
Yeah, I just do it in front of them, and it's like, well, you're not being a dick. They're being a dick, and I'm exposing them for being a dick. That would be wonderful. But, okay. Another thing I want to talk about, specific chassis, just really quickly. It's something that I see come up a lot of the time, being that I have an LS400. It's starting to become a pretty popular chassis, and it's one of those that is hard to find parts for. And people gatekeep like crazy on these chassis because, number one, it's a cheap car to buy. So you're not really above anyone for buying it. It's pretty accessible. If anybody has $4,000 or $5,000, they can acquire said platform. So number one, you're not special for owning an LS400. But the whole, the fact that the aftermarket is so slim and pretty much the only options you have are used parts, or one-offs, or really just rare parts that, they're used, they were built 15, 20 years ago, and so they're really hard to find. I see gatekeeping happen a lot with this, but it's also one of those things where you have the option to provide people with the tools to figure it out themselves. And so I get these questions all the time. Big one that I get is, hey, what headlights are those? And the misconception is that people will approach me with the attitude that they could just go and buy the headlights, and I have to explain they're custom made. They took a year and a half to make because we had to go through this whole engineering process of custom designing in CAD software to make the brackets, to hold the projector far enough back from the lens, and it be sturdy and be at the right angle. It took a very long time. It's an expensive process, and it was 3D printed out of metal. This is a very lengthy thing that I don't recommend a lot of people do, but if you want to do it correctly, it's the way to do it. When people approach me and they're like, hey, what headlights are those? Where can I buy them? Can you send me a link to the headlights?
it's hard to not sound like a dick, but without sounding like a dick, I'm usually just like, hey, they're custom made. I will tell them, hey, they're Q45, they're F50 Q45 projectors, the full beam projectors. Fuck, I can't even remember what they're called. I would usually, if I have it to mind, I know exactly what the stuff is. I'll provide them with that and then kind of explain that, it was a long process. It was pretty expensive. This is how we did it, and I'll share the post from when we did it. But other people don't tend to do that at all. And you have the option to provide people. It's the same thing with body kits for specific chassis. If somebody sees the body kit on your car and they can't figure out what it is, they're inclined to ask, and it's because they're curious. It may not be because they want to copy you, because 9 times out of 10, they can't, especially with an LS400. Like, I know full well that nobody's going to have the same kit as me, because one, the skirts, actually one of them's right behind the camera, I built it myself. And the rear bumper is a complete one-off that I've traced back to a demo car in Japan. I know that it was based on a Vleen kit, and that's what I will tell people. I'll be like, hey, it's a Vleen kit, but it's had modifications done, and then they can do their own research to find out stuff about Vleen and see what's accessible. But oftentimes people won't. They're just like, it's one-off, or like, I'm not telling you, blah, blah, blah. It's like, you can give people the tools, and I see it happen a lot with specific chassis, just because there's not stuff that's available, parts are rare, and people just don't want to share because they feel like they're on their high horse. And I mean, that's fine, but also if parts are already rare, it's way less likely that someone would be able to copy you.
I realized, I need to get closer. I realized, technically speaking, that we didn't necessarily touch on something that's a pretty big part of this in my head, but I'll try and encapsulate it. Actually, I'll encapsulate it very directly. If you were not living in Japan.
Oh, yeah.
If you were not living in Japan during the time period at which a Japanese car subculture was coming to be, and you have not been living in Japan with the people that make up that subculture, you are not a fucking expert. An internet education does not make you the authority on a subculture that you are not involved in at all.
Yep.
Can you be super passionate and interested and into these subcultures? Abso-fucking-lutely. And I'm telling you that because I am. I am somebody that is extremely interested in Japanese car subcultures, specifically Kaido racers. Obviously, real quick, since I'm saying this, little clarification pro tip for you. Busazoku has kind of become a buzzword here, which sucks in and of itself because it's such a serious cultural phenomenon in the 80s and 90s in Japan, but Busazoku refers to motorcycles. Kaido racers are the cars that so many people think are Busazoku. So just a little clarification for everybody.
But what you're touching on is when somebody shares something about, say, Kaido racers, for example, and somebody else who is probably in their 20s is like, well, no, it was actually, it was like this. And well, actually, were you there? Were you part of it? You are gatekeeping something that wasn't yours.
That is my thing, is especially because we're in the United States. We are not in Japan. Mm-hmm. And so, again, I'll repeat what I just said. If you are not, I won't even say if you're not Japanese, because there were Americans in Japan at this time, right? But what I will say is, if you were not there, if you were not at some point in your life surrounded by the people that make up that subculture, and you knew you were there when this stuff was popping off, you're not an authority. You can learn a lot about it, and that's great. And even then, further to the point of gatekeeping, if you have spent your time and your interest in learning about it, and you enjoy it and you like it, why the fuck would you not want to share that with somebody that's also interested?
Right.
Again, if you're giving them what they asked about and also just giving them that little bit more of context where they can go learn more about shit, what is that costing you?
Nothing.
You know what I mean? So
it doesn't take away from your enjoyment of the whole
exactly,
thing.
and that's the main part that I don't understand about this. Going back to what I was saying,
it's like hipsters, bro. It's like I knew about this stuff before you did.
That is like the overarching, especially with Kaido racers. I see it with VIP also. It's like it's very much that sentiment. Like, oh, like, you know, me and my friends who are all equally interested in this and have, you know, been looking into it and learning about it on the internet for years and this and that and this and that. It's like, okay, do you want a fucking cookie? Like, y'all, I'm sorry to tell you, but y'all are not the only ones in the US with any interest in this.
Right.
And so I don't understand like the trying to take ownership of a subculture that the only like connection that you have is time spent studying it.
Right.
And frankly, if you looked in the mirror and you saw somebody else that was not in your friend group trying to gatekeep like you do, you'd be fucking butthurt.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, I don't understand. Again, it's one thing to be kind of like, it's one thing if somebody asks you something and you tell them and they just, you know, are just like, yeah, okay, cool.
Right.
Or if they go and try and like use it and then they just bastardize it, like, I get it. That's one thing that can be
that
annoying.
Shouldn't change how you are as a person.
But it's like, it also goes back to what I'm talking about. If somebody asks you that and you answer that question, take the extra 2 minutes, if not less, to send them a link to where it opens up more paths for them to research. Mm-hmm. And if they're interested enough in like pursuing this thing that you're passionate about, they're going to do the fucking research. And like, especially with Kaido racers, I would love to see the people, you know, in the communities surrounding Kaido racers in the US volunteer more information like that. Because to be totally honest with you, outside of, you know, like Tumblr was like the first place that I was really exposed to like concentrated amounts of information about Kaido racers.
Mm-hmm. But it's where you saw the most gatekeeping about it, right?
Well, yes, but the point is like now, it's outside of Tumblr, it's really hard to find relevant information about that subculture. So if you've been fucking like, if you have all of these pages, if you have all these links, all of this shit, like, why?
Yeah.
And it all goes back to exactly what you said, because it's very much like, oh, well, you know, this is me and my friends. Like, we put in the work, this and that.
It's the like insecurity that you could
somebody's going to do it better.
Or it's the insecurity that you could not be credited for, like, knowing those things. It's like, knowledge is just a thing. It's just whatever.
And it's the internet, like, bro. If somebody starts, you know, if somebody comes out of the woodwork, especially somebody that, like, you're like, oh, holy shit. Like, I talked to them, like, a year ago, and all of a sudden they're doing this. Like, It's not like... You know, it's not like you're like, hey man, like I saw what you were doing. I remember when you originally asked me about this, like what you're doing is, oh, fuck you, bro. Fuck you. Like, that's not going to fucking happen. Like, at that point, you can literally just add them to your little fucking weird exclusive circle that you might have going on. Like, I don't understand.
You can't sit with us mentality.
Literally. And I just don't, I will never understand that, because that in and of itself is robbing whatever subculture that you are passionate about,
right,
from expanding and having cool new shit.
Yeah.
And that's just, it's so weird to me that there are so many concentrated like cliques and shit, specifically in Kaido racer stuff.
Yeah. It's
so weird to me.
So one thing I want to touch on, like related to that, with VIP stuff, VIP styling, all of that. I get the request pretty often for me to do an episode on VIP and VIP culture, its history. I've also had requests on YouTube to make a video on, what's VIP, what's not, or like what's the history of VIP, all of that stuff, right? The reason I have not done this is because I have not done enough research. I am not a person who grew up in Japan. Granted, I'm very interested in VIP culture. I love it, and I study the cars. I don't necessarily study the history of it, and haven't, and so I never want to put myself in the position where I'm acting like I'm the authority on it. If I was to make a video, I could specify at the start of the video and be like, hey, these are just my opinions on what I think makes a VIP build and what I don't think a VIP build is. But the problem with that is then when the conversation comes up in other circles and people are talking about this stuff, and then someone's like, well, here's this video. This tells you all you need to know about what is VIP and what isn't. And it's just my opinions. That's the misspread of information, and I don't want that to happen. And so if we do an episode on VIP styling, which I think it will happen, it's something where I'm going to make sure that I'm researched as much as I can possibly be into it. And if we are touching on things that I'm unsure about, I'm going to put it out there like, hey, correct me if I'm wrong, please. We are, and that's how we are with everything on this podcast. We want, like, if there are things that we're saying and you think that we're way off, or like if we're talking about something that maybe we made a mistake on the history of it or whatever, please correct us on that. Like 100%.
As you were saying that, I was thinking about it, and like I'm literally double guessing myself because I know for a fact that Busazoku, as I said, is the word for the motorcycles, and I know that Kaido Racer is the word for the cars. But I believe there is another word for the cars too, and I said that with like hella force, so somebody could be like, "Actually, they're not fucking good." So
please correct us.
I know it's Kaido Racer, but it might also be Zakusha. I just wanted to say that because somebody somewhere is be like, "Oh, he's talking about fucking Kaido Racer gatekeeping. He thinks he's fucking," and then he's wrong. Like, okay, you know what I mean? But. It's just like what he just said. I don't claim to be a fucking authority. No. And I will openly share any knowledge that I have in any place that I found it. Absolutely. Because look, man, this is just kind of meta for a second. Like one of the reasons why I am so focused and will forever be focused on the Japanese part of, modified car culture is there are just so many cool fucking off the wall subcultures that come from there. It's just so cool. And it's like that, I would suggest, learning a little bit about Busazoku Kaido Racer stuff, because in all actuality, it's very intermingled with, that a period of history in Japan and like societal thing. And it's super interesting. If you don't care about all that and you just like the style, fine, do your thing. Right. But like, know what you're talking about. You know what I mean? Like the thing that makes me want to fucking put my head through a brick wall is like how people use Busazoku as a buzzword now. Like when I see some fucking whatever the fuck Civic or some shit that just has like Takayari, the big exhaust, the big exhaust fan, that are like fucking 5 feet tall. And it's just like, every hashtag has Busazoku somewhere in it. And I'm like, and that's not me gatekeeping. That's just my personal taste being like sad that it has become a buzzword and it's just being bastardized all the time. But if one of those people, for whatever reason, asked me about something that I knew about, I'm not going to deny them that information because it sucks that they're, doing
Clearly
that.
They have an interest in it.
If anything, I'm going to be like, hey man, like, this is kind of like actually what this means. And like
another thing that I do want to say though is gatekeeping when it comes to stuff like that. I think that it's one thing when people approach you and ask you questions, but I think it is
out of your way.
Another thing to go out of your way to tell people. So like you were saying, like I think that you can have that opinion or whatever. And if somebody were to reach out to you because they maybe see that you're interested in this stuff and they want to ask questions about it, that's one thing. I mean, if you want to be a dick, at that level, you're
just a dick, yeah.
But that person then, like, if they were going out of their way to comment on something that you're doing, being like, dude, that's not Busazoku, stop fucking blah, 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 blah. That's another form of gatekeeping that is on a new level of dickhead. Because you just don't need to do that.
You know what, though? I just thought of a middle ground, I guess. And I'm not going to name names because me and this dude are really good friends. And I'm not even giving him shit for it. It's going to be kind of to his credit, but whatever. I'll explain it this way. I have somebody that is really knowledgeable about that, and he and I are friends. And he's like, and it's not Garrett, but he's in like the render art world, right? And so I just, in passing, saw somebody do a render. I don't fucking remember. I mean, I didn't like it. It wasn't really good, whatever. But, like, I saw my friend in the comment section, like, giving him constructive feedback. Like, if he wasn't my friend, I would probably, like, it'd be a little abrasive. But, like, when I read through it 2 or 3 more times, he was just objectively stating facts, trying to give dude, like, constructive feedback.
Well, if it's a render, he's, like, creating something to follow those, like, the guy was saying that it was fitting this, like theme, right?
Yes, but, like, so what I'm getting at is he was pointing out, like, very specific things and very specific part of it. And it's like, in that scenario, he did go out of his way to say something to him that was like but it was more like corrective than it was like, does this make sense? Am I making sense right now? Yes. Point is, it was kind of like, and this is always a risk on your part if you're going to give somebody constructive feedback or constructive criticism without them asking.
Yeah.
That's your risk to take. But I wanted to, like, point this out because it stuck out in my mind when that happened, because the other part of it is in that scenario, I know this dude well enough to know that he was not trying to be a dick.
That wasn't his intention, yeah.
You know what I mean? He was trying to, like, direct him to learn more about these particular parts that he did.
Right.
That could be
and then
better.
Then it's down to how the other person perceives it, blah, blah, blah.
Right.
Like there's some gray areas,
yeah.
Because for me personally, like, especially with, like, photography stuff, if another photographer gives me any kind of critique on stuff, I don't like it.
Yeah. Well, it's like I didn't fucking ask you. So,
yeah. Well, the main reason for that is that I do photography because it's an express form for myself, and as long as my customers are happy, I'm happy. I never have given a shit about it. That's why I'm not in any kind of, like, photographer, videographer group chats, or I might be in them. I don't contribute because I don't care about it's an express form for me.
Right.
And so whatever I make, if I'm happy with it and my customer's happy, that's all I care about. And so, like, I can see, like, both ends of the spectrum with that. Like, is somebody critiquing you on something that's an art form, whether it's building a car, render stuff, photography, whatever. There's definitely gray areas because they're taking the risk to give you the critique. And either side of it could be seen as some weird way of gatekeeping. And so I don't think that there's a way to, like, define either side of it properly. But yeah, the way that they approach you, they're obviously taking a risk on that. And then the way that you perceive it or the person perceives it is really up to them. And it could go either way. And so I usually just avoid any of those. Really.
Well, I mean,
that's the safe way to be about it. If you don't want to gatekeep at all, just avoid doing any of that.
I'm the same way. I felt like that was really relevant to mention because the day that I saw that, it really stuck out of my head.
Yeah.
Because especially, having communicated with him about this stuff before, it was kind of like took me off guard a little bit when I saw him, like, go out of his way to say that.
Yeah.
And like I said, when I first read it, I was kind of like, oh, that's kind of abrasive. But, like, when I read through it a couple more times and knowing, like, how fucking encyclopedic his knowledge about this stuff is,
right,
I was like, I mean, he's not doing it to be a dick.
No.
But, it probably is not as easy for other people that are not me who are friends with him to see that. But anyway, I just kind of wanted to point that out because that was something that, stuck with me when I saw that in regards to all of this. But I don't know where we're going from here. So
you want to end off?
Honestly, yeah,
an hour and 45 or close to. So we can cap it. I think we covered some pretty good stuff. And I just thought as you were ending off your conversation, I was like, I completely forgot that we do, like, sleepers at the end of this where we shout somebody out. And I was like, oh, fuck, I don't have anything. So I just opened my Instagram and, like, the first account that popped up that is important to me because they're really cool and I like the stuff that they're doing. I'm just going to go with that because I don't want to sit here and leave you guys waiting to figure it out. So while I'm talking, you can figure that out. But my sleeper for this week is 1/20th. She is a photographer in Texas. Her name is Bianca. She's really, really good at what she does. She primarily shoots exotic stuff. I know that she works with a bunch of dealerships and stuff around there. And her style of photography is, especially with the supercar stuff, is a little bit more corporate. It's less like how I shoot stuff where it's all about, it's all about depth of field, bro, making stuff look good for Instagram. Her pictures are clearly things that are going to look good in prints. And I really appreciate her style. She's actually shot some pictures for me before at Gatlinburg. And I like how she shoots. She's got a good eye for it. And she's getting more into shooting stance cars and show cars, which I think is really cool because I like seeing it translate over. But not only that, her personally, she has another account. It's like Fake Car Girl. She posts a lot of fashion stuff on there. And like she'll just take pictures of herself and like throw together really cool fits. And she's just a good person. Takes really good pictures, and I like her style, whether it's photography stuff or like her fits that she's throwing together. I wanted to shoot something. Like if you go look at the Fake Car Girl account, she'll take like really cool, like they'd look like fashion photography stuff, but it's always just like iPhone self-portraits. I actually want her to shoot pictures in some LEP stuff on there, and we've spoken about it. So maybe she'll do that soon, or maybe hearing this, she'll be like, yeah, I got to go do that now. But shout out to you, Bianca. Keep killing it. I'm happy to see you upped your prices literally like 24 hours ago. So that is the shit that I like to see, photographers, having that demand and knowing their worth. So shout out to you, and shout out to all the photographers out there that are, confident in their work and are charging what they deserve, and people are paying for it. You guys are awesome. So, Matt?
So just based on the Kaido Racer rant I went on, at Single Cam Research is one that I have post notifications on, all that stuff, because I love it. And just to be petty and say this, they don't have any captions. Mm-hmm. So I have no idea what that person's like. I never really see them comment on anything.
You see?
But if they are gatekeeping, they don't do it at people. So, but I don't believe that they are, regardless.
Well, they may not share captions because maybe they're not informed on this stuff. They just like the cars and share it.
Regardless,
possibly.
It's all original content from Japan.
Oh, is it?
99% sure.
Is it really?
I believe it is.
What if they?
Well,
the only reason I like. Ooh, where did it go? It just disappeared on me.
That guy.
The only reason I say anything against that is because these are like really, really good pictures, and it could be easy to say that they are from lots of different shows, and so maybe these are other photographers in Japan's pictures.
No, because look, they all have the same same single cam research watermark.
Okay, well, sorry if I'm wrong. Just that's me.
No, well, so
photographers, but
regardless, that's
this is really cool. Regardless,
that's my sleeper for today, because they're great photos of great cars, and there's nobody outwardly gatekeeping anywhere on the page.
Well, and the page is called Single Cam Research, and the keyword being research.
Well, there's Single Cam Research, and then I'm 90% positive it is the same guy. I would imagine so, but there's also DOHC Research. Mm-hmm. Oh, wait, it's DOHC Research, right?
Yeah, right above it, that one. That looks like that's the same logo. So
yeah, so DOHC Research is like newer cars.
I gotcha. So they break it down into
both
of these.
So
okay.
But it's really cool.
The photography all looks pretty consistent, so I would assume that this is the same people. Maybe they have a team that works for them or something. But this is badass. This is a really cool page to look at. There's a lot of stuff on here. Damn, that's sick. It's a Y32 like Gloria that's kind of set up a little bit like a Kaido Racer. Not really. It just kind of has an external wall cooler. That's sick. Whatever. Sorry, I'm just trying to buzz through it really quick.
Yeah,
it's fucking sweet.
At Single Cam Research and also at DOHC Research is just really, really cool, crisp, clean, original content from Japan.
And really good pictures too.
Mm-hmm.
So, all right, well, that's about it. I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. If there is anything that you would like to add, please feel free to either message myself or Matt on Instagram. My Instagram is at LEP_automotive, or you can message the substance_show account. And if you want to reach out to Matt, you can reach him at sub.stance.matt. And please.
I do want to say I'm not going to say they were touchy, but there honestly were a lot of subjects in this one that could go either way.
Yeah.
And I'll be totally honest with you. I want to know if you guys feel strongly enough about anything that I as a person said during this episode. I want to know what you think. Just message me on the Substance Matt Instagram, and I'll either tell you why you make an interesting point or tell you why I'm going to stand by what I said.
Yeah.
I just think that would be an interesting way to
it just furthers the conversation. I'm kind of in the same boat too. Like if there's anything you would like to add, maybe going off of something that I've said, maybe something that we didn't mention, just feel free to reach out. That's kind of the point of this is the conversation. And if we can keep it going, then that's awesome. And, you know, maybe if there's even more stuff that we just didn't cover, like we can do another part on it. It's fine. But yeah,
if it adds a little bit of sweetness to it, if you start a good conversation with me, I'll shout you out on the podcast.
I won't. I won't.
Liam gets this shit all the time. I'm still small time. I can do this shit.
I'm dealing with over 100 messages every single day, and I reply to all of them.
I'm dealing with negative 100 messages every single day.
So if I'm happy to get into good conversations with people, but no, I'm not going to shout out fucking 700 people a week.
I am. So hit me up.
But if you enjoy this podcast, please share it with your friends. It's really awesome when you guys tag us on stories throughout the week because I can repost them on there, and it's more and more people that are like, oh, there's a podcast about cars, let me go see what that's about, and then they listen, and then hopefully they enjoy it. So yeah, if you're able to share this with your friends, that would be amazing. And then it really helps us out as far as, you know, showing up on, I don't know how long it'll be until we pop up in feeds on, you know, Spotify and Apple Podcasts, but all I can say is give us 5 stars on those apps, and we'll see what happens with it. But as far as YouTube goes, just if you got anything to say, there's a comment section for stuff on there, and then you can like the video, and then if you want to see any of the other stuff that I do, whether it's related to my cars or any of the shenanigans that we get into outside of the podcast, it's all on the YouTube. That's pretty much it. And go grab these shirts because they're really cool. They're really comfortable, and I haven't done colorways like this before. I probably will not be doing these colors, this olive green and the gray again, at least not for a little while. I will be dropping some more different designs, and we're going to be doing some cool branding stuff with Substance. And I'll talk a little bit about the new kind of business model for LEP moving into the new year, but just not on this episode. And yeah, so if you like these colors on these shirts, go grab them now. Like I said, super limited numbers. It's on lepautomotive.com/shop, and we shall see you next week for another episode. And till then, Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Forever. Thank you.
And because of execution, we'll give you this.
Nice car.
Thank you and good night.
Love you. Bye.